actually take a look at some. The only checking out of the wounds done so far was, are you bleeding out? No. Can you walk?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And once that's established, then now's the time when somebody can actually get a good look at Ithasha and realize that hyena, if it had stayed attached to her, probably would have torn off a fair amount of her body. So
Ouch.
that and so the two of you who were bitten are probably pretty grateful for whatever it was that made them let go. On the other
Yeah.
hand, that raises, maybe while this is being discussed, is when the question that Athasha had in mind, because the reason that they let go is standing in front of you.
Yeah.
There is just one thing I wanted to know about, because I've been checking. There is one detail that you mentioned when we first met Crixus and Listas that I wanted to check on, which was the unusual clothing on Crixus, and I was wondering if there is any skill that can give us some,
Okay, well,
insight.
the clothing he's wearing is unusual in that it is not local.
Mm-hmm. But I have an idea of where he may be from,
Right,
or
right. I mean, the whole point is that there are developed land. There are lands elsewhere full of humans with provinces and cities and towns, ships, um, probably complicated histories of different kinds, um, and that the humans that you're partly descended from and who live along the river now come from those places and have been settling along the river for about 300 years. Um, Never, losing the connections to where they came from, but slowly developing their own sense of identity and place here. And too, that there have been historical events, that were more dramatic. Um, so the clothes he's wearing simply mark him as coming from those lands.
if
Right? And the unusual clothing that you have seen, and now that you can get a better look at it, is that it's called a tabard. It's a more formal piece of clothing that goes over regular clothes that Listas is wearing, that is very, it doesn't fit her that well, and it's very obviously consistent with Crixos's clothes, not hers. Her clothes really aren't that much different from Ferreth's, except that they're in better shape. So, and that's the weird garment that seemed to resist the bite of the hyena, as you may recall. Um,
yeah.
and so that's that accounts for everything I knew about their clothes. Was there something else I said that caught your interest?
No, no, no,
Okay.
no, no. I got this vibe that what basically we were seeing was the maybe in my mind a classic Germanic fantasy character dropped into the
Yeah.
middle of this very, So I
Right.
was trying to
Well,
understand.
to a certain extent, that is actually true.
Okay, okay.
But the continuity of culture between your culture and his is fairly solid. There is no, the difference in language is only regional slang, or, and might actually be accounted for as much by social class as by location. Um, the, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, I do think that's the case
Okay, no,
in lots of ways, but he doesn't look like he's from a different dimension or something like that.
no, no, no. I guess I think that it's kind of like a Frenchman into the American colonies or
Right.
something like that.
That's a pretty good analogy. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, but that kind of clothing means he traveled to be here.
Oh yeah, definitely,
Yeah, okay.
definitely. To his ears and to yours, he speaks with an accent, not
Yeah,
like a foreign
okay.
accent, but with a different accent of your own language.
That's
Right.
everything I needed to know.
Yeah.
While she doesn't, she's clearly from
Right.
here.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm. And she speaks
Okay.
some Duster.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, but
So-
she's not neither Duster nor Draver.
No,
nor-
she is not.
she's-
Right. And again, I mentioned this before, just for clarity, that they are both taller. I mean, Listas looks Ferrith in the eye easily and may actually be a little taller than he is, or about the same height. Crixos is taller than she is, and so therefore, sort of as a pair, they're distinctive from the two Dusters fairly dramatically. I mean, there's a good,
Mhm. Yeah.
easy 10, 12 centimeters difference, just flatly. So, okay. Any other rolls then? Out of that's very nice. I mean, we're beginning with a look at a rather successful meal in a rather safe spot. So that's great.
I was thinking about making a cooking roll. Now, my thinking was, I'm not sure exactly. I need to look, but I think the cooking skill might be a little too specific for what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
I think it's
So
a
it
little
might be
bit like the singing.
a feast.
I think the singing is a little. I mean, it's a little more like "Do you please the guests" or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I had in mind was that Vesselk is somehow guilty, and now these people are kind of traveling with us. So she wants to kind of make them a nice meal.
Well,
So
believe
I
me,
thought
the
it might be
foraging and the
worthy of a roll.
foraging and the campsite itself have already established that. If you want to be nice about
Okay.
it, so if you want to be nice
Yeah, I
about it,
think- okay.
you totally have. Now, as far as since the cooking is not an adversity situation in terms of
Right.
the rulebook, the rulebook makes the
Right.
best sense if you look at the failure state for each skill.
Right.
And you have to reverse engineer it and say, is this a situation where that's on the line or where that could
Right.
happen?
And it's just not.
So, right. And if it's not, then it's not, and you don't have to roll. But that way
Yeah,
you don't have to
right.
say, oh, I was just trying to do this. And you're like, well, all of a sudden the guests appear and they hate your song.
Right.
Poof.
Right.
Right, because you
Sure.
failed, right? Or some
Yeah.
shit like that. So,
Okay.
right.
So
So
I
in
guess
that
I'm
case,
being a little more careful in the preparation of the food, but the main thing I guess there, because the role was camp building, is that I'm like taking out my tent that I carry with me and offering it to them.
Oh,
to, like,
okay.
use or
All right.
something.
Well,
I guess that's maybe that's part of it.
I have to say that's rather remarkable. I mean, they're scared. They're I don't know if they're scared of you. They kind of are, but they definitely find you the least accommodating. The least.
Right.
They're kind of like, does the lizard have to come? Maybe
Right.
maybe the lizard would be happy going that way. They don't
Yes.
actually say that, but they're it's the idea that you're being kind of courteous is they both like stare at
Right.
you for a little bit and say thank you. And you will notice that neither of them has you out of their peripheral vision.
Oh,
ever.
of course not. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I bet.
So, but
Yeah.
that's kind of that's an interesting point. Anyone else in this moment of relative calm?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm probably only going to dump the food stuff in front of Vafsalk and
Right.
do whatever you want with it.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to convince Farid to question Lisas a
Okay.
little bit, because I want to know if,
Right.
as I said, if that woman is going to travel with me, I need to know why she
Mhm.
attracted hyenas that acted obviously, according to Vafsot, completely out of
Mhm.
what should have happened.
And if I'm not mistaken, Ferrith has already expressed, or Lorenzo, you told us at least in his mind, he also
Yeah.
said, all right, damn it, you've done it, Game Master. I am actually interested in their problems.
Curious about
Right, yeah,
yes, what's
exactly.
going
So,
on here. Yes, exactly.
So
So-
anyway,
It's
therefore,
our problem. I mean,
that's right. I mean, that's the point. Natasha's correct. It is now your problem.
serious?
Right.
But-
She is.
Now,
If the
it's-
hyena teeth bite into my flesh, It's my problem.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
As I wrote in my comments, I put things in this character without knowing it that are coming out now. And
Right.
I realized that for him, it makes perfect sense to be curious.
So why don't you go ahead and tell me what he does?
Yeah, exactly. So I go and I think I'm going to try to talk with Listas, trying to see. I'm addressing her, but keeping an eye on him because
Sure.
he looks like overprotective. So and he's also, I guess, in the dynamics of our social positions, at least from what he expressed, he probably feels like he's a superior. I don't know if he's a noble or anything like that. I didn't get anything, but he seemed to think himself superior, so I have to be careful about
So what will
his
you do?
presence. I will tell Liz, I will approach them over food and
Mhm.
ask them if they are feeling better. I exchange some courtesies and then I will just jump there and say those creatures, those animals were attacking us, and then they suddenly just moved toward you. And I know a bit about how these creatures behave, and that's not natural. So if there is anything you feel you should share with us about this that could help us keep you safe and ourselves safe during the night, this would be a good time if you want.
All right. So first, Listas will introduce herself a little bit more formally.
Mhm.
Yeah, she belongs to or she lives in a community which is and in the river basin, not very far away from here. So within some travel, very reasonable amount of travel from here, she can be home. Furthermore, that you have heard of this, it's a few village, a few towns away from where you're used to upriver, but it is not unknown. And she is a member of the family who, as I think she mentioned last time, um, breeds horses.
Yeah,
And
yeah, they
so
told us that.
there's ranch lands here, and that um, she they had been part of a group that had gone riding and and for lack of a better word, sort of day tripping through friendly duster territory, which she kind of looks around her and says, which we're in right now. And so so it was my uncle, who she names for the first time, who's named Casca, and and also several other people that they knew or worked with, people she knew. Crixos is visiting. He has connections with our family, and he has come to stay the season with us. Or she might even say a round of seasons with us, which would be a year.
Okay.
And we were. It was extremely frightening and upsetting. We were attacked by a lot of hyenas, at least 10. They threw the horses into confusion. They were biting horses and people, and they uh, were savage and terrifying. My uncle, I was